ladies and gentlemen, to BTC Body Slam the Competition presents our Spotlight interview. And today we have with us former WCW and current Impact ring announcer Dave Penzer. Dave, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. I don't really start till next Thursday, so officially. I mean, we already taped it, as you know, but I'm not official till next Thursday. Rockstar Spud will be the official ring announcer of record for Impact Wrestling tonight on Pop TV. So, but that's okay. You know, everybody loves spoilers.
Well, we won't tell anybody. Well, then we'll go with former / soon-to-be ring announcer for TNA / Impact. How's that
yes,
sound?
sir. There is no more TNA. It's only Impact.
Well, this is true.
And I actually
I
was very, not to cut you off, I actually was really worried that because I'm so used to the former three letters that no longer exist, that I would mess up and say them. But I actually got through the whole set of tapings without saying those three letters. So I almost did one time, and I caught myself.
You know, I actually quite enjoy the way it's being done once again under – I mean, I really didn't have an issue with the way Dixie Carter did things. There were a lot of good storylines and everything. But I was more, drawn to the way Jeff Jarrett had done it back when he was running the show. And now that he's doing it again, I see it coming back up into the rankings for real true competition against, the WWE and Ring of Honor and New Japan. And I think it's really going to go a long way with the new regime.
Well, I could tell you this. I know we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but I could tell you this. I've been in WCW, XWF, which was a startup that never got going, but had a lot of big names, and we taped 5-10 hours of TV. I was in TNA, obviously, the first time, and I was just back this weekend in the rebranded Impact Wrestling. And one thing I noticed, every other place I've ever been, this isn't a negative. Sometimes it's actually a positive, but every place I've ever been, there's been some sort of underlying tension. A top guy who's not happy. People who don't agree on the direction. People in different factions. Look at WCW. There was a lot of big time tension towards the end, and that's been documented. But a lot of places there's because look, a lot of people have egos. There's always been a lot of underlying tension, and it was so cool because, and I noticed it the second day I was there over at Universal, is there's no tension, not at all, not even underlying. It's a group of people who really like each other and enjoy working together, from the management side to the production side to the talent side, who are all working together to put out a great product and to try to rebuild this thing. And I just thought that was super cool. I'm not saying that to try to kiss up to anybody, because look, I could have said that about other promotions that I work for and other companies I work for, but it's the God's honest truth. I told my wife the second day, she said, "How's it going?" And I said, "It's funny. I've never been like this, where there's nothing but positivity." And so where that's going to lead, I don't know. I hope good places. Whether I'm, continued part of it or not, down the road, I'm hoping to be there for a while. But, a handshake agreement, and let's see what happens. We'll see you back in July, and let's see what happens. Is fine for me now. And last time that happened, it was a good 5-year run. So I'll take that. But it was a really great environment. I didn't know a lot of the talent guys. I knew a lot of the production people from WCW and the last time in TNA, and obviously I knew a lot of the management people because I've worked with Jeff a lot in different venues, and he usually brings in the same group of people for the most part that he trusts. And it was really cool. So I'm excited for the future, and I don't know where they're going, but I'm happy to be along for the ride starting next Thursday.
Well, it definitely must be an amazing change of pace, with the camaraderie that is going on there compared to, and I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to throw it out there. The volatile backstage antics, drama, situations that we've all heard the stories that have revolved around, the latter years of WCW with, as a lot of people like to say, the inmates running the ward, so to speak. Which takes me to this. What got you into WCW? From my understanding, you started as a mobile disc jockey while at the University of Florida, and then started announcing for, I believe it was Global Wrestling Alliance.
Yeah, I was actually a DJ in high school. You read my Wikipedia page, so I have no idea how to get on or change, or nor do I care to. But I was a DJ when I was at University of Florida for a limited run, but I was a mobile DJ when I was in high school, and through a series of very unique events of my people in my family knowing other people, and just a lot of luck, and then once I got the luck in, a lot of hard work going there, I got in with the Global Wrestling Alliance. It was a penny stock market company when WWF was getting big. They put it on the penny stock market to raise money. I was a master of all trade, master stooge, did everything I could, put up the ring, eventually got to ring announce some, got to be good friends with the booker, a guy named Bob Roop. When the Global Wrestling Alliance closed, me and him bought the ring and started promoting indie shows in South Florida. And he got a call from Ole Anderson to come and be a road agent for WCW. And he said what every good friend says is, I'll put in a good word for you. And you think to yourself, yeah, sure he will. But, especially in this business, because if you put in a good word for somebody and get them a gig and they screw up, then the heat's on you big time. So a lot of people don't do that. I'll give Bob credit. He put in a good word, and I got to start bringing enhancement talent up, while I was there, since I wasn't wrestling and wasn't ring announcing, obviously, at the time. I would run guys for promos for Jim Ross and then Tony Schiavone. I would eventually walk around and have people sign releases and stuff like that, be at their gorilla position, make sure that the talent was ready. And when the opportunity arose, when they needed a ring announcer, I had a shot. I was scared to death, and probably won by default because I was coming up anyway. But the rest is history, and it was an amazing ride of somebody who has no athletic ability at all, being able to live their dream in a closed athletic business. So pretty cool.
And it's
short
kind of
version.
funny.
The long version would take till tomorrow.
It would take till tomorrow. Well, unfortunately, we only have a little over 50 minutes left, so we don't have until tomorrow. And I'm sure, as busy of a man as you are, you necessarily don't have till tomorrow either.
No, actually, I'm showing a home in about an hour and a half. So.
Well, I wish you luck on selling that. So I look at it this way: ring announcers, they're overlooked a lot because they're there to essentially announce the contenders in the match, so to speak. Sometimes end up involved in matches, and which we'll get into that shortly. But in my opinion, announcers can be considered the unsung heroes because they've seen and been involved in a lot of things in the business. Whether it's prominent storylines, whether it's like you said, backstage bookings, or even setting up the rings. It's one of those things that, like I said, are overlooked. Now, you mentioned bringing guys in. Who would be some of the notable guys that you managed to bring in when you started doing, the first-handed stuff in WCW?
There's guys like Bob Cook and, you put me on the spot now. I know Bob Cook was a good friend of mine. There's just a lot of local talent, Rick Dames, Sonny T, there was I did book Mark Marrow for his, and then and Dusty liked what he saw and gave him the Johnny B. Bad gimmick. He didn't want to go up in the van with us, so he drove himself. But I was the one who did book him, and at least put together for putting him in touch with the people. He didn't want to go through me, and probably worked out good for him. anyway, but there's a lot of guys, a lot of local guys. Rick Ryder, mostly guys that people that followed the local Florida indie scene, and maybe the end of championship wrestling from Florida would remember. Look, back then everybody had the way it worked in WCW, and who would have thunk it? Was all the job guy, the enhancement guys had bookers. Rip Rogers booked Indiana in that area. George South and the Italian Stallion booked the Carolinas. I can't remember his name now. Mike Jackson booked Alabama. And the difference is they would also come in and do enhancement jobs so that they would not only get a small little booking fee for booking the guys in, but they would get their pay to do their match. Well, I wasn't a wrestler, so I didn't get that, but it was my door. It was my entryway in. And it's funny you talk about ring announcers. I by no means think that anybody comes to a match to see a ring announcer. It's the talent and they're putting their bodies on the line that gets people in the door, and their ability to promote and talk and cut promo. But it's funny, when I was speaking to Spud, Rockstar Spud, who's been doing the ring announcing for Impact Wrestling, he said, I've decided that everybody that takes a bump should also have to try to be a ring announcer, so they appreciate what the ring announcer has to do, especially for a TV taping. I thought that was pretty cool that he said that. I don't know that I agree with that, but look, everybody has their place, and I'm and ring announcer's a small cog, but sometimes if that small cog doesn't work, the whole thing gets messed up. So, I'm proud of my role, but I understand that I'm not the star, I'm not the main role, but I'm just a small part in it that needs to do their thing.
Yeah, but I would consider you as a voice of the people. You let everybody know who's coming in. There's times I've seen guys I've never heard of, and thanks to ring announcers like yourself, we find out who they are, even if it's just by name. That gives us the opportunity to look them up and find out stuff about them.
Sure.
So it still helps us greatly. You know what I mean?
Sure, and when we're doing when we're doing a TV situation, we're also my main job at a TV situation, a lot, and an Impact this weekend along with JB is to keep the crowd going, keep them informed, keep them rolling and cheering and being excited. That's way more important than announcing the names, and that's the part that at an independent show it's really not important, but at a television event, that's the major job of the ring announcer, or a guy like a host like Jeremy Boras,
who I think is fantastic. He's great at commentary. I love seeing him there now. Speaking of which,
I agree.
Do you see yourself eventually maybe branching into, aside from being just a ring announcer, maybe branching into doing commentary, since you've been in the business for as long as you have?
I'm 50 years old. I'm just glad I'm around. I didn't, 5 years ago, I thought I was done with this business, and I was okay. I was all right with that. I lived my dream. I like to say I lived my dream. The rest is gravy. So I'm, it's crazy how the world works and how life goes. I'm just glad to be back. The answer is no. I did some of that in WCW. I did under a different name. I was the play-by-play for the European version of Monday Nitro. It would air a week after it aired in the U.S., so that's why I had to use a different name, because I was pitching to myself in the ring. But it was pretty tough. Larry Zbyszko was the color commentary guy, and he totally carried me 1,000%. If WCW had gone on, there might have been some opportunity to do play-by-play as the road continued to expand, but that's past. I'm a ring announcer. That's what people have hired me for. I'm happy. If somebody wants to bring me in for a local TV and have me do play-by-play, I could do it, and I'm happy to do it, but I don't expect a call anytime soon. And I certainly, TNA does not need me doing anything else but ringing. I'm sorry, Impact Wrestling. See, after all that time, I at least it wasn't on the air. Impact Wrestling doesn't need me doing. They got JB and Josh and the Pope and heck, Magnus was doing a spot where he was doing commentary during one of the matches, and I was amazed what a great job he did. So, I don't even think they knew it, but they have a potential color guy there. He was unbelievable. I was really impressed, and I told him so. So I'm happy being a ring announcer, but there was a time that was something that was on my radar, and if WCW would have lasted, who knows? But I'm good with where I am right now. I'm just happy to be back.
Well, now bringing us back to WCW, one of the most iconic things that I and everybody probably remembers is that you didn't wear the typical attire. Now, was that a decision that you made, or was that a decision that, Bischoff or, whoever else in charge back then at the time made, and that was, instead of wearing a traditional suit, it was a tuxedo and it was always something different, a different color, it always stuck out every week, but the colorful cummerbund that you wore. Was that your decision, or? Yeah.
Back then, the ring announcers pretty much, in the business, boxing and wrestling, wore tuxedos. So I was told to wear a tuxedo. I wasn't told what I had to, what cummerbunds and bow ties I could wear with it. So I decided that, and it wasn't like a pre-planned thing to get myself over. It was just to change it up, because if I had to wear the same thing every night, on the road for 25 nights a week, I was going to, people get in different moods. Sometimes people are in the mood to, they're in a good mood, and sometimes they're in a bad mood, and and the way that person dresses or acts or performs, sometimes is caught up in that. So I had to wear the same black and, black pants and black jacket with a white shirt. So the only control I had over what kind of mood I was in and, standing out a little bit was to get some of the more colorful cummerbund and bow tie sets. And I wasn't trying to, do something that people would be talking about on a podcast 20 years later. Really, I was just giving myself a little freedom and independence as to, what I wore. But it turned out that people dug it, so that's cool.
And it more or less, it was like your mood ring. And go figure,
yeah,
what
sure,
I mean?
Absolutely.
It's something that made you stick out, And I'm guessing that everybody backstage thought it was a great idea, hence why you continue doing it.
To the best of my recollection, I don't think it was all that much discussed. It was, I don't think it was a matter of conversation all that much. It was what it was. Maybe at the beginning when I started wearing some of the, the different color ones, somebody might have said something, but nobody told me to stop. So I just kept doing it, and like you said, it was my mood ring. It was, and I thought it was cool. Look, I'm no fashion bug by any means, but I thought it was cool. It's something that made you stand out a little bit. Again, I didn't think I'd be talking about it 20 years later, but it was. I'm glad people remember me by that. That's something cool.
Well, I can definitely, for one, say this. I, sir, respect the individuality that you chose to do with that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I don't know that much thinking went into it back at the time, but I'll take it.
Well, back then, you were mainly, like you said, you did some commentary here and there, for the European shows or for the UK tapings, which back then it wasn't. The internet didn't play a factor like it does now. If it would have been done now, it really wouldn't have worked because everybody would have had the spoilers already, because it's broadcasted worldwide and the internet and Twitter and so on and so forth. So, it definitely to your advantage, I'm guessing. But now
I don't know that anybody but myself, Larry Zbyszko, Tony Schiavone, who was the producer, and my wife knew I was doing it, quite frankly. We were running so hard back then. If I wanted to even get the word out, I didn't have the time to get the word out, and there was no real platform back then to get the word out. Internet was in its infancy, and back then, who cared that the ring announcer was doubling as the UK Nitro host? So But, now today probably people would be talking about it because everybody's talking about everything everywhere on Twitter.
Right. Well, now, aside from doing all of that, you actually did find yourself in some, I'm just going to say, altercations at points in WCW. And that would be most notably with Mr. Y2J himself, Chris Jericho.
And who to think? All these years later, the guy would still be just as entertaining. It's amazing. The guy is such an entertainer.
I love it. He finds a way, and I watch all products. Like I said, I recently started getting back to Impact because the former regime, I just kind of, in my opinion, got stale. But, even in WWE, Chris Jericho, he comes and he goes, and he comes and he goes. And every time he comes back, he finds a new way to reinvent himself. And in lesser words, I really can't think of any words, but to keep himself relevant in an era where he's such a veteran, that he's been around so long that some guys don't even have a tenure like that.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Spot on commentary. Every time he comes back, it's something different, and it's always fun to watch. One of the times he came back a couple of years ago, he came out and ended up not saying anything for weeks, I think. And I thought that was brilliant at the time. And now he comes out, and I'm sure he went to creative and said, yeah, I want to do this list, and I'm going to put people on the list. And they probably said, you know what, every time we've said this isn't going to work about a Chris Jericho idea, he makes it work, so roll with it. And, I text with him sometimes, and he does have a lot of input in his, and the writing team has a lot of input as well. But the listing is over with me big time, and I know it's over with the fans. And it's one of those things. If anybody else tried it, and no offense to anybody else, they wouldn't have made it work. Chris has a unique ability to make the silliest things work in the most amazing ways, and it's an ability he has. And, it started with, taking my tuxedo jacket off and taking my chair and banging it, and because he wanted to turn heel. And, nobody really cared because everybody was focused on Nitro and Thunder. So him and Terry Taylor and came up with this thing to turn him heel on Saturday night, taking my ring jacket off and stuff. And, it's funny, it's funny the things people remember and they want to talk about 15, 20 years later. Back then, you don't necessarily think those are going to be the things, your cummerbund and your bow tie, the Chris Jericho taking your jacket and bringing you a new one. But it just goes to show you never know what's going to stick in people's minds. But yeah, Chris is amazing, and he can make anything work. I dared him to fail at getting anything over because he hasn't yet. And that was fun back then. It was fun to be a little part of the show and work with Chris, who's a good friend, and and he's just gone gangbusters from there.
There's no doubt about that. He is, and he's still got plenty of time left in the tank, so to speak, I feel, in my opinion.
He doesn't seem like he's slowing down, that's for sure.
No, not at all. Not at all. Now, with your WCW time, when the New World Order came in, is that something that backstage everybody knew about, or was that something that was just between Eric and, Scott and Kevin? And I've already heard the stories in terms that it was supposed to be Sting that would have been, the third guy, but it ended up being Hogan, and I heard that Hogan left, I believe it was Kevin Sullivan's house, and right, where the event was, and just made a beeline, so to speak, straight for the arena, halfway through the event. Is that something that the backstage knew about, or was that a shock to everybody?
As far as Hogan turning heel, I think people had a feeling, but nobody knew for sure. And nobody knew for sure, including the people who planned it. Because, as you said, Kevin had to talk him into it, had to keep him. As a matter of fact, I did a whole bunch of interviews on The Hannibal TV. It's a YouTube channel called The Hannibal TV. I interviewed about 60, 70 guys during WrestleMania weekend. And people want to check that out. There's a lot of great interviews, but one of them was with Kevin Sullivan, and I asked him about that, and he goes into detail about having to convince Hogan and his manager and keeping him at his house. So it wasn't that it was originally supposed to be Sting. It was always supposed to be Hogan. Sting was the backup plan if Hogan got cold feet. But as far as the, Hall and Nash coming in, people ask me, what are your favorite moments of Monday Night Show? And one that sticks out of the top of my mind is when Scott Hall walked down the stairs in Macon, Georgia, and we all knew he was coming, but had no idea what character he was going to be and what angle they were going to use. And when he came in and walked down and got in that ring and used the Scheme Gene and the whole thing that WWF had been using against us, trying to embarrass us, and then said, you want a war, we'll give you a war, pretending like he was coming in from WWF as part of that angle that WWF had started. Man, I just thought that was one of the coolest things in the world to this day. That was an awesome angle, and props to whoever thought of it. I'm pretty sure it was Bischoff and Kevin. But that a light bulb went off in my head. There's been a couple of times where I've seen something in wrestling, a light bulb's gone off in my head and said, this is going to be big, and that was one of the times. So yeah, nobody really knew what the most of us that weren't in the booking meetings didn't know. What exactly it was going to be. Most of us knew that Scott was coming in, that Kevin was coming in, and that they were trying really hard to get Hulk to turn. And then it just went off from there, man. You saw the reaction in Daytona Beach, and it just grew a life of its own, and it was just an amazing run.
I mean, I'm in my early 30s, so that happened in, I believe it was 96. And when that happened, I watched Monday Night Show, and at that point it was, Nitro was on, there was at least 1 hour where there was channel flipping back and forth, so to speak. And I remember putting Nitro on, and that's what it was. I watched Nitro first. And then it was, the full hour of that, then an hour flipping back and forth, and then I would finish off with Monday Night Raw. And I remember seeing that, and like we've stated before, the Internet wasn't what it was or what it is today. And I remember seeing that, and I'm watching it with a friend of mine, and I'm like, wait a minute, why is Razor Ramon on Nitro? What is going on here? And that forever in my mind will stick out. And then I believe it was a week or two later when Kevin Nash tapped Bischoff on the shoulder, and Bischoff turned around and literally almost soiled himself at the sight of Kevin Nash. And those are two moments that will forever stick in my mind besides the infamous heel turn of Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, that was good stuff, man. It was you can't you look back and I'm not going to say you don't have that kind of stuff happen anymore, because there's still really cool stuff happening in this business. But that was some of the most iconic moments in the history of this business happened on Monday Nitro and during that period. And I agree with you, man. I sort of knew that they were coming, but I didn't know what. Like I said, I didn't know what they were doing, and a light bulb went off in my head. I said, "Man, this is cool," and I worked there, so imagine what the fans at home were thinking. So,
right,
it was cool.
It was definitely one of them great times in wrestling. The Monday Night Wars were definitely something to watch at that time. Now, did anybody backstage, including yourself, did you guys think that the longevity of the NWO and its course would have run as long as it did? I mean, in my opinion, I felt it started getting too watered down with the amount of people they started adding, and then branching it out and everything. What's your opinion on that?
I think anybody who you ask, whether it be the players or the as a matter of fact, I did ask at this subject. Not that I'm trying to pimp this interview with Kevin Sullivan, although I got a ton of stuff to pimp later. But on the Hannibal TV, this interview with Kevin Sullivan, he talks about that, and he gives the answer to that question. And in short, I think that almost everybody involved to a person thinks that they should have kept it a lot smaller than it was. But it's very easy when you're when you're trying to keep ratings going. It's very easy to keep surprises and you know what, you put yourself. The cool thing about surprises is that they're cool because nobody knows about them, even in this day and age of everybody knowing everything. That's why WrestleMania is so fun, and the Raw after WrestleMania is so fun, because one of the few times you don't know who's gonna walk out of the curtain, and they keep it pretty close under wraps. So I think that they got themselves into a situation where, in order to keep the ratings, they had to keep getting surprises, whether it was somebody new from WWF or whether it was somebody turning or somebody turning back. And, look, hey, it's very easy to look back and say, we should have done this, we should have done that, we could have done that, this would have worked better, that would have worked better. Everybody wants the knowledge of hindsight, but unfortunately they don't have it. But, I think at the time they did what they thought was best. It worked for a long time until it didn't work anymore. And, I know what when Eric came back and was trying to buy the company, I know what he was trying to do a little bit. Not I wasn't on the inner circle, but I was sort of I was the assistant to the person in the inner circle, which was John Laurinaitis, of where they wanted to go. And I really think that they could have gotten it back on track, but once they lost the TV slot, there was nowhere else to go. But knowing a little bit about what I know, I think they were going to go back in the right direction, and I really think that there would have been a good chance that WCW even could have still been around today. But like I said, the decision by TNT, TBS to cancel the television shows pretty much guaranteed that there was going to be no more WCW, even with all the money that Eric and his group of people could get without a place to show it. There was no use in buying the company. So it is what
right.
it is. I like to look back and think what could have been, but it is what it is, and can't change it.
Now, do you think that a lot of it had to do with, and a lot of people speculate it was because of how things were run in the end, as far as the product, the direction it was going at the time, where everything was just these random weird matches and the things that were going on and the caliber of some of the stars that were there and the direction that, the WWE was taking their product. Do you think that may have had something to do with, I believe it might have been Warner Brothers or AOL that purchased Time Warner, the reason why they didn't want to carry on with it?
Those are two really different questions, because even though the product was getting different after Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara came in, and if I'm being honest, in a way that I wasn't a fan of personally, love Ed Ferrara. Vince Russo's never done anything bad to me. Good people, but I'm just not a fan of what they were doing back then, and so. But that's a different question to why they canceled the show, because even with the direction that it was taken into, and a lot of the bigger names, either going home or being sent home or getting hurt or so be it, it was still one of the top 20 rated cable television shows of the week every week. So I just think that AOL didn't want to be in the wrestling business. They didn't care. They didn't care about that it was still one of the top 20 shows. They saw a company that was losing money, and the morale was bad in a lot of ways. And one guy decided to kill the time slot. I forget his name now, but he'd come in and decided to kill the time slot. It's easy to Google. Ted Turner had a lot of power taken away from him when his companies merged with other companies, and I don't think he would have ever, unless it had fallen to a point where it wasn't still getting cable ratings at all. I don't think he would have pulled the plug. He was a loyal guy, and he knew that wrestling twice helped him out. First time was Championship Wrestling from Georgia, later World Championship Wrestling, getting him on the map, and then WCW becoming such a big product in the Monday Night Show, being the number one cable television show for so long. So he would have never done that, at least at that time in 2001. He had unfortunately lost enough power that he had couldn't save it. I know that he wanted to try, but so that's unfortunate, and it is what it is, like I said. But it's a shame. I really think that if Eric would have bought it and would have done some of the things that I heard he was going to do and get back to basics, I think we'd be seeing something different right now. But as we all know, that's not the way it went. And you could go back and slice it apart and point fingers and all that, but almost 15 years later, you just sometimes I think you just have to let it be. Right.
Well, you mentioned that, and that could have changed the landscape of professional wrestling as we know it. And speaking of which, the course of professional wrestling changing. In March of 2001, WCW was purchased by, the WWF at the time. I'm assuming that if the stories are true, nobody backstage knew about Shane McMahon showing up, that, Vince had bought the company. What was your reaction seeing Shane backstage?
Well, we knew that they bought the company. I was at home probably on a Wednesday, and that last Monday Night Show obviously would have been that Monday. So, and I saw a splash page go up on the WCW, I think the WCW page or the WWF page, or maybe both, that it had the WWF logo in the left corner, and then it had a big purchases right in the middle, and then it had the WCW logo in the right corner. And you know what? We had heard rumors, and I had been prepared. People had told me in upper management to prepare for the worst, but that was when I found out. That was how I found out, as a matter of fact, for sure, that the company had been purchased. But as far as the Shane McMahon thing went, and that was on the run sheet. We all knew about that. It wasn't in black and white. They left a lot of things. Question mark TBD, because they didn't want to give away too much ahead of time. But we knew that Shane was there. We knew that Bruce Pritchard was there, and there's somebody else there from WWE. I want to say Jerry Briscoe. The only thing I could say is that I went out there and I poured my heart and soul into keeping that crowd up, and it was emotional for sure in a lot of ways. And when I got backstage after the show was over, believe it or not, Shane McMahon pulled me aside and said, "I really appreciate you keeping the crowd involved, and I think you did a really great job." And it's the first and only time I've ever really had a conversation with Shane McMahon, and so that was pretty cool to hear that. I certainly wasn't expecting it, but it was a bittersweet night, that's for sure.
Almost like an end of an era, more or less. Were there ever any talks about you maybe going to announce for the WWE, or was that, like I said, something that was talked about, or did you opt to want to pursue something else at the time?
No, all employees had a little 15-minute time slot closed down to go to a hotel and meet with John Laurinaitis and Jim Ross. Jim Ross being the head of talent relations for WWF, and talk about the possibility of working with them. And what was told to me by Jim Ross was that the current plan is to run WCW as a separate brand, and when and if that happens, we want to use you as the ring announcer. And but anything could change, and until that does happen, there's no guarantees. So,
and obviously, we know the course that went.
Yeah. The good thing about being I was just talking to somebody about those days back in the days when everybody was making big money. I was an employee, so the bad thing was I never really made the big money contracts. The good thing is I got 8 months of full severance pay with insurance and everything, full pay and benefits. So it did give me a little bit of a cushion to be able to find what's next in my life without going totally broke. So that was that was cool. I had a little bit of time to kind of look around and see what was going on, and I ended up hooking up with the XWF and moving to Tampa, and that didn't really work out. But but the rest is history. I'm still here in the very same house I bought when I moved here. So, and I'm still involved in the business, which is it's kind of freaky on a lot of levels in my mind. So,
well, speaking of moving on, aside from XWF, from my understanding, you were in you announced the main event of NWA Florida in 2001 involving Steve Corino, where he won the NWA Heavyweight Championship. And in the midst of, a couple years after that, I believe you became a vice president for an airbrush tattoo company.
Yeah, my brother worked in the cruise industry. He had a friend who also worked in the cruise industry. Went back home and saw that his best friend who was a graphic artist, had come up with a concept of doing airbrush tattoos, found a chemist to make really good ink, and was able to set up a computer program to really do anything as an airbrush tattoo, a face, a logo, whatever it was. And so they put me in charge. We formed a corporation. They put me in charge of sales, and I went with it, and we grew the sucker from nothing into $5 billion grossing a year business for a while. Got on cruise ships, got in a lot of big zoos, aquariums, theme parks, water parks, and rode that wave for a while. And a lot of it went away when the market crashed in 2008 with the the homes and all that, and the mortgage crisis.
Right.
And we lost our cruise ships a few years ago for no reason other than they didn't have, because of a change in policy, they didn't have enough crew cabins. And so we could have paid for a passenger cabin for our employee, but it didn't make financial sense. So I own it by myself now. It's just a seasonal business where if you're in New York or Chicago or Atlanta, we're still in Zoo Atlanta, Bronx Zoo, New York Aquarium, Central Park Zoo, and Brookfield Zoo in Chicago. So if you go there and you see airbrush tattoos, that's my business. And also we do tattoos. They do our tattoos at the Tampa Bay Rays games on Family Fun Days. So still dabbling in a little bit of everything, my friend.
An entrepreneur at his best.
You gotta make a living. Life goes on, and if you look, there's two sort of people. There's people that look behind and say, "Why me?" And there's people that say, "All right, let's stand up, brush yourself off, and find something else to recreate yourself." And I'm proud to say, and not trying to brag, but I'm one of those people who just move forward. And I haven't gotten rich off of it, but I can't complain.
Well, that sounds fair enough, my friend. So, now we're in 2005. TNA at the time, Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. Who made the call? I'm assuming they reached out to you, to have you come in and start announcing for them.
Jeff Jarrett called me. Shane Douglas was doing backstage interviews. Jeremy Borash was doing the ring announcing. Shane had to take some time off for personal issues. And nobody knew how JB would do as a Gene Okerlund type of backstage interviewer. He called me and he asked me if I wanted to come in. There was no guarantees other than, back then they weren't doing weekend sets of tapings. They were just doing a pay-per-view and then a taping. So I had an agreement for the pay-per-view and the Impact taping, and it lasted 5 years. JB excelled at the backstage stuff. I always thought he did a great job, and I was always very much ingrained in me that if and when, because Jeremy was a TNA original and stuck with the company through a lot of times when people necessarily weren't even getting a paycheck on time, that if and when wasn't doing backstage interviews anymore, that I might not be there, or I wouldn't be there. And so I had a hell of a run, had a lot of great times. And when Eric and his partner Jason Hervey came in and started getting involved in production and producing behind the scenes, I don't know if you'll remember this, but instead of JB asking the questions, Jason Hervey would just ask them off camera for the most part. And so,
right.
So that's, JB, that he was also involved in production and stuff. So he wasn't only the interview. He wears a ton of hats up there and does a great job. But
right.
They figured at that point, why are they paying me when Jeremy's on salary and he could come out and ring announce because he's not backstage anymore. So it was bittersweet, but can't say that I wasn't warned, and I was happy for my time and the opportunity to catch up with old friends and do what I love to do.
Well, with that, once again, you managed to end up with a quote-unquote another altercation. And I'm pretty sure you know which I'm speaking of.
Oh, new Hall of Famer and general manager of Raw, huh?
Yeah, Kurt Angle. I have to ask, man. That had to be painful.
He didn't even thank me in his speech for letting him beat the living what out of me. It could have been like a quick thanks, Dave. It didn't even have to be last name. Hey, thanks, Dave. I was there.
Right. So, sorry I swelled up your face, Dave. No hard feelings, buddy.
Hey, I got a bonus, though. That counts. I got a hazard bonus.
Like the old saying goes, and like my mom would like to say, it's all about the money.
I'd have rather not had the bonus, quite frankly, but it is what it is.
Right. But that was – so, you get released in 2010, and then you start doing realty, or you start becoming a real estate agent, and then you branch off to, like you mentioned, Hannibal TV. Everybody check it out on YouTube. What brought upon the call to return to now current Impact Wrestling?
I got a text from Scott D'Amore. He said, "You want to come announce in Orlando, April 21st, 22nd, 23rd?" I said, "For TNA?" And he wrote back, "Well, it's now Impact Wrestling, but yes." So we went back and forth and discussed a few particulars, and I agreed to come and do the weekend. There were no guarantees past the weekend. And it seems like they were happy. And last I heard, and when I said goodbye to Jeff on Sunday night, I'm invited back in July. And I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work out for a while. But if they ever decide to go in another direction, I have, I'll just be appreciative of having another opportunity. There's no guarantees in life, and ring announcers generally don't work under contracts. So it is what it is. As long as they're happy with me and I'm happy to be there, I'll love, going on there, doing my thing. And like I said earlier, it's just a great environment. That's the one thing. And no matter what happens, as long as I get to stay this time, it's just a great environment, and it was really cool to see a bunch of people band together to work hard and try to turn things around and get back on track. And I'm just happy to be a small, tiny little part of it for a little while.
Well, that's.
But I was surprised.
Oh, go ahead.
I was surprised though. I didn't expect that call. When Jeff first came back and brought, some of his crew back, I thought to myself, since I'm in Tampa, I thought, I wonder if I might get a call. I'm not going to lie, it did cross my mind, just because I'm local and JB was doing play-by-play. And then I heard that they were using Spud. And I said, well, again, he's an employee, he's under contract, getting paid. Why not, use a guy like that and instead of, paying somebody to come from the outside. And so made total sense to me. No hard feelings. Good luck, Spud. And they decided they wanted Spud to be in the ring, to be a competitor. And so I got an opportunity to come back.
And I've seen Spud wrestle. I mean, the dude is phenomenal in ring. I mean, people don't give him much credit because of his size, but it's almost like the little engine that could, the underdog, so to speak. And one day I could see world championship status if given the proper push.
I don't know about that, but I'll tell you this. I was at WrestleCade this year in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and they had a battle royal, and battle royals, battle royals, a battle royal.
Right.
It's not, it's an attraction, but it's not always the most exciting thing in the world, especially until you get down to a few guys. But he was fantastic. He was hiding, and he was he would hide in different places, and he was doing all kinds of spots with people where he obviously his gimmick was he was trying to hide and then go in and be the winner after everybody eliminated themselves. But he was so damn entertaining in doing it the way he did it. It was just natural for him. And I told him afterwards I had never met him before, and I said that was damn impressive. That was highly entertaining stuff. And so that's the only time I've really seen Spud wrestle. I didn't watch a lot of TNA back when in the day. If I'm being honest, I don't really watch a lot of wrestling. I DVR some stuff and try to fast forward through. And but I've not seen anything else. But if that's an indication of what he could do, then you never know about world championship status, because the entertaining little guy. And when I say little, I mean that with all due respect, as a 5'6" guy with no athletic ability. So.
Hey, everybody's got their shtick, so to speak, So we wish him good luck on his pursuit of the gold and the glory.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
No, I don't know for a fact, but I think he's probably happier now that he's going to be wrestling again, and he has he works behind the scenes with them as well, so I'm sure he'll be fine. And hey, he got to experience something that most of the actual wrestlers don't get to do. So it's a cool little opportunity for him to see another side of the business that can never hurt.
Exactly. It's learning that it's a learning tool that people can utilize later on down in life.
Yeah, absolutely. I always wanted to do the most things I could. So in addition to the ring announcing in WCW, I learned production. I was involved in talent relations later on. I was a junior member of the booking committee towards the end. I always tried to do as many things as you can, because the more things that you're able to do, the more valuable of an asset you become. So that was always my thought process, and I think that that's just a good thought process to have in life, not just the wrestling business, but especially in the wrestling business, and especially when you have no athletic ability. Have I stressed I have no athletic ability? have I gotten that point over?
I think you might have. If memory serves me correct, I think you may have.
It's just I say it joking, but it's humbling to get to be a part of this business when you really are only I could take a bump if I had to, but really I can't go in there and do what these guys do every night. And so much respect to anybody who's able to get in there and do it, whether it's somebody who's doing enhancement stuff for indie guys or guys on top in Impact and Ring of Honor and WWE. I have so much respect for what these guys do.
As do I, believe me. I tried to do it. I myself ended up with a wrestling injury when I was 20. I broke my neck getting suplexed the wrong way.
Oh, jeez.
And I ended up in a wheelchair. And I look back at it and say, tell me about it. And it was life-changing, but I give these people, these athletes, and I call them athletes. Some people, have stated, oh, it's fake. But when you got guys like Diamond Dallas Page that said, I thought it was fake, and I stepped in that training ring and I said, there's nothing fake about this. I give them the utmost respect for what they do.
Yeah, no, the word fake should never be used. You could say predetermined, that's accurate. The word fake should never be used. Nobody could take a bump off a top rope and not feel it, the next day. And, no matter what you do, no matter what the moves are, it hurts and people feel it. So fake is doing a disservice to anybody who's ever stepped foot in the ring. That's not the right word in any way, shape, or form.
All they would have to do is ask Sanjay Dutt, because he wrestled last week with one of his eyes swollen shut.
Yeah, by Sunday it was just finally starting to open again. He took a bad shot, but these guys put themselves in harm, as you know. sorry to hear. You know, put themselves in harm's way every time they step into the ring. And like I said, I think one of the reasons why in interviews like this I stress that I have no athletic ability is because I don't want people, just because I'm on a podcast as a ring announcer, to think that I don't have total and utmost respect for the guys that go out and do what I couldn't do if my life depended on it. So.
Right. And like they always say, don't try this at home. And if it's something you want to do, go the proper measures and get trained properly.
There's plenty of places to go now.
Yes, sir, there is. More so now than ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
But on that note, we're coming down on time. We've reached under 4 minutes. Dave, why don't you tell our fans and our listeners where they can follow you out on social media and anything that you would like them to get involved in?
Oh, I got a whole bunch of stuff. No, I have a few things I've been working on. Of course, check out the Hannibal TV on YouTube. It's a YouTube page. Not only does it have all the interviews that we did, has a ton of shoot interviews with a lot of talent. They did Ken Shamrock and John Heidenreich while we were in Orlando. I know that they did Larry Zbyszko. They recently they had one with Vince Russo recently, one with Vader recently, and it's all free. You don't have to pay anything. You don't have to put down your credit card for 1 month. You don't have to do anything. You can just go and check it out. So there's a lot of great content there. So I certainly suggest subscribing to that. You'll get automatic updates when something's posted. And it's real. If I could do it, then it must be simple to do because I'm not too computer savvy. Also, you can follow me at Twitter. I'm trying to get the Twitter thing going at David Penzer, all one word. Trying to make my way up to 2,000 followers, and hopefully many, many more. I've been trying to interact more. So definitely follow me at David Penzer on Twitter. If you're in the Tampa area, know anybody who's in the Tampa area who's looking to buy or sell a home, feel free to have them reach out to me. They could PM me on Twitter, or they could just Google and find out. Find me, just Google David Penzer Tampa Realty. There's places that you can find out what my information is. I'm happy to tell old stories as I'm showing houses, so you get two for the price of one. If there's anybody interested, I'm very happy to talk to them. And we're also doing a show. If you're an old school championship wrestling from Florida fan back in the 70s and 80s, we're doing an intimate fan fest in the Tampa area on June 3rd with the original assassin Jody Hamilton, Bugsy McGraw, Steve Kern, and a lot of other old school wrestlers. So we're doing that. You could go to eventbrite.com, and just in the toolbar you could Google CWF Fan Fest, Championship Wrestling from Florida Fan Fest. It'll bring you right to all the information on that. And looks like I'm launching a podcast here in the coming weeks and months called Beyond the Spotlight. Wanted to do something that nobody else was doing because nobody wants to see me interview the same guys that Stone Cold and Booker T and all the big names, JR and Chris Jericho did. I'd rather listen to them interviewing them than me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find talent in the wrestling business that either was behind the spotlight, referees, other ring announcers from other generations, stuff like that, or guys like a Stevie Ray from Harlem Heat or a Horace Hogan who were in the spotlight and for whatever reason they decided to walk away and to hear their stories. So be looking for that on social media. Be called Behind the Spotlight, and so we're going to see how that does. And I think that's all I have to plug. Let me see.
Well, I would definitely suggest getting a hold of Jimmy Corderas because he would be a great guest for you. And speaking of guests, ladies and gentlemen.
Love to have him.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, definitely, man. I'll put a tweet out to him and put you guys in the same tweet.
As a matter of fact, the first guest I'm going to have for the pilot episode that I just spoke to him today is Nick Patrick. And
very nice, nice.
He's going to hopefully answer the famous question of the fast count between Sting and Hulk Hogan at Starrcade. So hopefully he didn't promise me he'd give me all the details, but he said we'll talk about it. So we'll see. But I'm looking forward to hearing his story and seeing if maybe we could get a scoop from back in the day on what really happened.
I like it. I will definitely have to look out for that one. And on that note, sir, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to thank Dave Penzer. Dave, we would like to have you back in the future. It was great having you.
Sure, my pleasure.
And,
happy to do it anytime.
Oh, definitely. Thank you, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, watch out for tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, where I will be sitting down with the man I feel originated the selfie, Mr. Sonny Ono.
Tell Sonny I said hi. I love Sonny Ono.
I definitely will, sir. I definitely will. He probably have a couple stories to talk about, and I look forward to that. And ladies and gentlemen, follow us on Twitter at BodySlamTheComp. Follow us on YouTube and subscribe at BodySlamTheCompetition.com. Hit the follow button on Blog Talk Radio /BodySlamTheCompetition, and follow us on Facebook at BodySlamTheCompetition. Once again, Dave, thank you very much for your time. I know you're a busy man and got stuff to do today.
My pleasure. Got to go show a house. Wish me luck.
All right, sir. Good luck, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.